Hello and welcome back to the Age of Bison YouTube channel. This is SerSharkDad, and we are coming up with a little bit of a different series here for you. So this is going to be the first entry of our Civ Spotlight video series. So what this is going to be is we are going to highlight individual civs for you. We're going to go over just the pros and cons to each civ, strengths and weaknesses, various win conditions that you need to be going for, and then adding on to that, we're going to go into a standard deck build and then talking about standard opening build orders for each civ. So we hope that this would help you as you're kind of trying to pick up a new civ, trying to get into the game, learn something about each civ, maybe potential counters when you're struggling on the ladder. This is going to be the videos for you. So we're going to open up Portugal, and we have brought in a fellow Portugal expert, so as to say, I'm not good with every civ, obviously, so each civ will have a co-host that will be able to speak more into the civ than I would. So we're going to start off pretty easy here with Portugal, and I'm joined here by Platypus Slayer, who for a very long time now has been a Portugal main since, what, 2007, you would say?
Yeah, since whenever I got this game, and ironically picked the water civ on a computer that could not process water graphics at the time. Yeah, no, I've always loved Portugal. Sometimes I have a love-hate relationship with the Civ because it can be really difficult, I think, to get going. It's definitely an intimidating Civ in 1v1s. In team, I think every new player's just fought the Portuguese goon bot at some point and probably has a nasty taste in his mouth. But it's a really dynamic and it's a really flexible Civ, but it's one that doesn't have any mechanics that makes it easy for new or returning players often to get the Civ going. So I really look forward to kind of breaking it down. Like I said, I'm not a pro, I'm not an expert in all things Portugal, but I think we can go over, like you said, the strengths, weaknesses, the different unit types, compositions, and hopefully a new player can understand the Civ better because it's the lowest played European Civ. It has been, I think, since RE, and it's a Civ that everyone says is trash until they fight a good Portuguese player, and then they're like complaining that, town centers are OP.
All right, well, so let's jump right into it. Go ahead and tell me, give me some of the big strengths of Portugal and some of the civ bonuses that we're going to be looking for and what sets it apart from other civilizations.
Oh, well, let's see here. Let's just start with what makes the Civ unique, right? Because it's kind of subtle, right? So if you look at the tech tree, the first thing you'll see is that the Explorer has the spyglass. And this is kind of one of those abilities that it starts with 7. Oh, they don't put the spyglass on it anymore.
Okay.
So we'll start with that. Receive a free covered wagon, aka a town center wagon. Every agent starts with 7 settlers. The 7 settler start is a double-edged sword because Portugal doesn't get any settler shipments, right?
Mm-hmm.
It does allow you to flex into quite a few openings, right? It's one of those things that you're like, what's the difference of one villager? It's huge. It means you're gathering, for at least the first minute and a half to 2 minutes of the game, something like 13-15% faster than your opponent, right? It is just wonderful. Portugal doesn't have the most crates to balance it, starting resources, so it means you have to be really quick, right? And this is what I mean where some of the difficulties come. Like, you can't just, get it and kind of be like, I'm just going to gather wood and think about things. Like, everything you do with Portugal in the opening 20 minutes of the game needs to be thought out. And it needs to be exact. If you're gathering enough for a market and hunting dogs, right? You need to gather exactly 50 extra wood to grab a house next and 50 coin.
Okay.
No more, no less, while also not idling your town center. So we can go over that later, but it requires a lot of math. Looking at the next part, even though it's not listed here, so the Explorer has something called a spyglass. About every minute, you can reveal part of the map. And this is one of those abilities, again, you're going to hear this a lot. It's subtle, but incredibly powerful if you know what to do. In the opening parts of the game, you can discover parts of the map, which if you're clever and you remember what a map looks like, just a little hint, you can unlock something near a trade post and get even more line of sight revealed from your Explorer.
Right.
You can find where the best treasures are. Like, if you know a map and you know typically where the strong treasures are, right? You can explore one spot, oh, I don't want that treasure. The coin treasure is usually over here then, and you can use that to ensure that your age 1 has very effective treasure gathering to give yourself a boost. You can do later in the game, you can spy on your opponent, right? Like if you have a spyglass and your opponent just aged up and you want to look at what he aged up with without exposing your explorer or keeping him on treasure duties, bing, just hit his town center, boom, you can see the crates on the ground.
Right.
Even throughout the mid game, right? Like, is your opponent tech switching? And you kind of have an idea where his army is or his military buildings are. Drop the spyglass. My personal favorite, for those that like to fight a little dirty, write this down. If your opponent has like a dock or there's a piece of water near his base and you want to move your shipment point for naval reinforcements, you can actually spyglass his side of the water. And if you're quick enough, you can pick up the home shitty point and drop it behind his base and then time it with like a frigate or a mortar, or I mean monitor. Uh,
Interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I
yeah,
guess you have
so
vision on it, so then therefore you can move the beacon. Interesting.
exactly. And so I mean, there's just so much utility to it. It's one of those abilities that when you're a new player, it's going to be probably really hard to remember to use consistently, right? But the best tool in any strategy game is knowing what your opponent's doing, or getting an edge up on what the map looks like. And these are both things that the explorer should be spamming consistently throughout the game. So those are probably Portugal's two things: is the town center every age, which maybe I'll hold off until a little bit later to explain some of the thinking behind that. But that is, again, one of the biggest bonuses in the game, but also one of the hardest to properly use.
Right, because I'm imagining that the boom potential born out of the town center as well as map control and vision is really good, but then the resource demand to when in H3 you have 3 TCs, right? So that's, you think 3 settler production at a time, but that's 300 food, right? Like I would imagine that's pretty difficult, and then just remembering to even keep the settler production up, especially for newer players, is also difficult. So you're not using the full value of the Civ.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if now or later to explain some of the math, but it makes or breaks your Civ in a way. Every Civ obviously has to use its bonuses, right?
Mm-hmm.
To win. But like, if you're Germany, you're getting 2 Ulans every shipment, or 3, right? 4 in H4. It's kind of self-explanatory. Use your military units to kill stuff, right? Brits get a settler every time they build a house, right? So build houses as much as you can, right? With Portugal, it's like make villagers. That's what every civ does, right?
Mm-hmm.
But where you place your town center is going to make or break your game. If you're on a map versus an opponent that you don't want to turtle into, and you turtle, you're just dead. Assuming equal skilled opponents, right? Like, you have put your second town center too passively, and you've lost the game. But you don't know it. 15 minutes later, when you're out of food, when you're in the corner, when you're being out ecoed, and you're like, "How did this happen?" What all happened from a decision at, well, let's say typically 3 to 4 minutes.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay,
Uh,
so interesting. It's sensitive then. But so can you tell me what would be like the general win condition that Portugal is looking for? Are they, I mean, obviously destroy your opponent, make them resign, but would you classify them as a boom civ then because of the town center and that they would want to play late game? Is that really what they're going for, or is it really dependent?
yeah. What's great about Portugal is there is generally a lot of win conditions, but I would say that it's like in a lot of survival games, right? Where like you go into a room, the door's locked, and it says win conditions survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or objective survive.
Yeah.
That's Portugal.
Okay.
Portugal is definitely a late game powerhouse. They unlock all of their good stuff in Age 3. Their units scale pretty wonderfully. Their town center boom, or if they have water or stagecoach or a variety of things, allows them to outpace almost every civ in the game. There's very few civs, if any, that can keep pace with an unpunished Portuguese boom. It's why I think the team or the civ is so much more popular in teams, because it's harder to really punish the Portugal player when there's 3 other players running interference, or 2 other players,
Mm-hmm.
and this allows them just to take off. Um, in 1v1, you can't really hide behind your ally, and it becomes just, I would say, frustrating often for new players, because what's going to be happening is you don't have super shipments, you don't have like a super early power spike. You just have to like take good fights. and you have to know your Civ, and you have to use the varied roster of Portugal to mix things up and ensure that you're taking at least fights that aren't ending the game for you while you continue to boom. And then after about usually 12 minutes, if you're a Portugal player, you know, if you've made it to 12 minutes and your economy hasn't been idle too hard, you've been able to produce units, and you're not pushed off the map, uh, it's, you know, uh, it's a good place to be at. It's probably one of the strongest civs in the game at that point, and there's very few things most civs can do to stop Portugal if they get to that win condition. There's just better eco, better units, better flexibility, um, and it's the Portugal's players' game to lose.
Okay. Interesting. So then, I mean, so then therefore you kind of already mentioned it. I was going to ask what are some weaknesses for players to look out for. So you would say maybe like pretty sensitive to your town center placements and making sure that you're using your bonuses, as well as maybe are they weak to a rush?
Yes and no. Um, so let's describe that early game, right? So a normal civ has one town center, couple good Ville shipments, and usually either a focus in age 2 to do a boom, right?
Okay.
Or some sort of military spike in age 3, right? I think with the exception of perhaps the Knights of the Mediterranean civs, uh, even then, Malta is more an H2 boom civ. So let's say, besides probably Italy, um, every civ in the game either wants to spike up militaristically, which means they tend to have good tempo, really strong shipments, and a really robust early eco, right? And then you look at, like, let's say Dutch, let's say Inca, let's say Brits, let's say Malta. These are civs that want to sit in H2 a very long time, right? And create this like very powerful economic base through various means, right?
Right.
And they tend to have stronger H2 units to compensate for the fact they're going to be fighting into H3 stuff. You know, whereas Germany and France, they have the stronger villagers, strong villager shipments, and this allows them to go to H3, Haudenosaunee too, spike really hard with strong units, and hopefully either end the game or put themselves into a commanding position.
Right.
And then you have Portugal. You don't have any Ville shipments. For your 3 town centers to pay off for, let's say, Germany, which is one of the rough matchups, you need like 10 minutes to catch up with 3 town centers, you know. But if, you know, getting 1 town center, then 2 town center, then 3, it takes almost 10 minutes to hit parity with Germany.
Okay.
But you don't get Ulans with your shipments. You don't get like very strongly valued military shipments. You just have to kind of figure things out, right? And exploit weaknesses in the German comp. So you have to sometimes though sit in H2 because there's some civs that can rush you really hard, like India and Haudenosaunee. But you're not really strong in H2. So it becomes this like dance where you have to figure out how to take a fight cost effectively that allows you to beat the rush but not get you stuck in H2, because the 2 town centers in theory will outstrip people. But if somebody has a 5 villager shipment, by the time your second town center builds and makes its first villager, you're going to need about 5 to 6 minutes to catch up.
Yeah.
All things basic, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you think about how critical Age of Empires 3 is in that Age 2, especially the opening parts of Age 2, you can see why so many people start to struggle, because you have to either get to Age 3 and fight these now more robust civs and survive, or you have to go sit in H2 just the perfect amount of timing. You know, typically it's like you ship 700 wood, 8 crossbow, and then 700 coin and age up behind it. Like that's like the perfect rush defense, right? You put some walls down, you build some units, pop Minutemen, and you have to have just really slick micro and macro the entire time. And so, you know, if you've played this game for a while, or if you've ever played Portugal, given up, you're probably like shaking your head, saying like, yeah, I've been there, and it sucked because I made one mistake. The game was over. You know, I played against Ottoman, and the first game they Jan rushed me, I overcommitted, and then they just went to H3 themselves. I was crippled behind and I lost, or I was prepared for a rush never came, and I was just so far behind that by the time I got back up to H3, my opponent had already, you know, contained me, put me in my base. I ran out of natural resources and I died. So it's really tricky to get to that like H3 late or H4 moment where Portugal's all of its strengths are really kicking in full blast, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to get there. You have to be comfortable with moving villagers around. You have to be comfortable with herding, making sure your town centers are in the right place to ensure that you kind of lock down certain parts of the map. You have to be comfortable with just being under pressure, because you won't have the bigger mass, and not to panic, not to, overcommit. And these are really tough civs or skills to have, and I think it's why Portugal has always remained, even when it's had its like overpowered moments or balance issues, it usually stays at the bottom of European play rates because even a very quote unquote OP Portugal is still kind of nerve-wracking to play, whereas other civs are just a lot more comfortable and a lot more easy to get to that win condition.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. I appreciate you running through all of that. Let's go in here and I set up a blank deck for us. This is a blank slate. We can kind of talk about units and exactly what we're going to go for here when designing a deck. And we'll go over land and water, but we'll do land first, and then because I think water, there's only going to be some slight variations. We're going to go over just a basic standard deck that let's say you are building for somebody. So let's go into age one. What would you pick here out of the selection?
So already Portugal, we're gonna, there's gonna be a lot of forks. So the first two cards you're gonna send as Portugal in about 99% of games that are on land are Feitoria versus Eco Theory. Now Feitoria is a really strong card. It's the equivalent of now I think it's 1.2 villagers per town center in trickles, split between wood, coin, and food. Now the pros of this is that it can't be rated, right? So
Right.
if Huss or something or Ulons are sweeping through, this gather rate is never disrupted. And the more town centers you have, the more value you get, right? Most trickles are 1.65. This is already the best trickle in the game by the time your second town center kicks in. Or not best trickle, but best age one card trickle. The downside is that as the game goes on, it has less meaning, right? Because it kind of caps. Now, Eco Theory was the card of choice of Portugal for ever, since the Civ came out as a first pick if you're going to do an H1 card. And a lot of people will still bring both. Put simply, because I said with Portugal how you're having to really split your macro and you're having to use all of your villagers very flexibly, right? As you kind of make sure you have enough infrastructure, so guys on wood and food coin typically for your units. And it benefits all of them, and it benefits them immediately. And with Portugal, because you're always going to be building vills, a lot of vills, unless you're losing, in which case neither H1 card matters. It's just really scaling. So if you're doing a fast fortress, which is definitely the meta right now, and you're going to be focusing on all in to age 3 and unlocking those units at the expense of possibly macro, Feitoria is the better card. If you're playing a more greedy deck, aka more focused on booming and kind of risking tempo, Economic Theory is the best.
Okay, interesting. So do you take both, just for the flexibility of it, or you say we'll design two different decks, one for Feitoria, one for Eco Theory?
I would say as a new player, I would stick with Feitoria. And the reason that I would stick with Feitoria is because the fact that it's less villager macro that you have to think about, right? It's kind of an automatic thing. It's like an APM crutch, right? You are getting resources without having to put any input from the player as the game goes on. So I would say start with Feitoria, and we'll focus probably on more of a FF, a Fast Fortress or 10-10 play for Portugal, because I think that will allow new players a lot more confidence in wins and getting to access all the fun stuff for Portugal before we get into the deep dive of when Portugal wants to play H2
Okay,
or 3 or 4 long.
got it. All right, any other cards in H1?
I would almost always, unless you're really confident like me or stupid like me, so they both go hand in hand sometimes. Colonial, what do they call it? Town militia. Again, you're going to have all these town centers. You're not going to have the best shipments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just need to defend. Well, Portuguese Minutemen are most civs would not take this card, or well, some do, some don't. What better civ than Portugal? You're gonna have all these town centers. You're gonna be on the defensive for the first part of the game. Um, these guys are really useful against a lot of unit types because they only count as infantry, so they can mess up skirmishers. They can mess up crossbows. This gives them more damage. This gives your town centers more damage, and more HP. If I remember, no longer HP. Um, what more could you ask for in a defensive card for Portugal? Now, you don't want to send this prematurely, but if you fought an initial wave, another wave is coming, and you're short on units. Again, cost effectiveness. This is a card that 2 clicks of the town militia button, and you've got an army for, excuse me, about half the cost of your opponent, who's also eating TC fire, which is now doing more damage. So,
Right.
it's great.
Right. And you can max that damage up by 10 villagers in your TC if you have them present. And that's what this becomes very, very effective. Any other cards in H1?
No.
No.
Like I said, eco theory sometimes, but let's not. We're going to sit for a fast fortress.
Okay. So in H2, what is mandatory then for this? And then we'll build out all the other ancillary stuff. We're just going to go for, the absolute necessities here.
Okay, so what should be in every deck for Portugal, we're going to start with 8 crossbows, 700 coin, 700 wood. This is, bare minimum. There's no reason it shouldn't be in this deck. Ever. It just helps for everything. The next card will be the gunpowder HP and attack. Sorry, it's the attack in H2.
Okay. That's a 15%.
Yep.
Okay.
And then advanced arsenal. Again, with Portugal, you might be tech switching 2 or 3 times. A card that buffs all infantry and also helps your artillery, which with the organ guns synergizes very well. It's just great. So from here, I'm going to suggest adding 600 coin next. The reason is sometimes in H2 you might be defending with Hussar and versus a Russian enemy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having extra coin to help you get up, because again, the longer you stay in H2 versus Russia, the worse things get, can be really key. And then, excuse me, 600 coin, or 600 wood is the next card. It's a good card. Sometimes you have to defend with pikes and crossbows, or build a bunch of houses, or pivot to water, build a tower somewhere. They're just great. And I think this is the bare bones minimum H2 that you want to see for Portugal. You will see some players put even less. I think if you're a new player, start here, and then if you're able to consistently fast fortress every time, start to remove cards as you feel fit. The last card to consider, I'll just put it like an honorable mention, is Spice Trade. If you're going to be sitting in H2, or you feel like you can get away with a little bit of greed by doing a semi-fast fortress, you can send this card, which helps food. Again, Portugal, you're building 3 town centers, like Aaron mentioned, 300 food every 25 seconds minimum. Plus, all of your units tend to be food costed. So this just helps with everything that Portugal wants to do, even with the hunt bonus being removed, which I won't rant about. This could be a really good card for a semi-FF, but let's come back to that. Let's go to H3 and fill out the real king cards that you want.
Okay.
So right off the bat, 1,000 wood, 1,000 coin. There's no reason ever not to take those. Then for upgrade cards, we want gunpowder HP.
The team card.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a team card, but it's good in 1v1 too. Dragoon combat. And constables, which is between the musk and the 8 halbs.
Okay, I'm letting everybody read this. This is a Dragoon action and hit points. 20% is pretty huge. Constable. This is a different one.
Yeah, this was added last year, and it's really helped open up halberdier play. You can also do some cheeky spy stuff, but that's, it's for a different time.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to go in with probably the most effective card for Portugal and arguably one of the best Age 3 cards in the entire game, 3 Organ Guns. Um, I know I didn't get a chance to quite go over all the units, but maybe we'll put that in before we start the first.
Yeah, do you want to talk about what the organ gun is and its
Yes.
differences?
So the Organ Gun used to be the shittiest gun in the entire game. It was like a punishment to send for Portuguese players. We won't talk too much long about why it was so bad, but it was hilariously bad. It has been buffed with target lock and price. Now it's 3 organ guns for 200 coin, and it is the best infantry killer money can buy. I'd argue it's even better than the Gatling because it has a bit more range. Um, it it just shreds infantry, especially if they clump up. It's like a midpoint between a falconet and a Gatling gun. It has multiple projectiles with small AoE that have massive bonus against infantry. It can rip down buildings pretty effectively. It's pretty cheap and it's kind of fast. Um, it's so good. It's less pop than a falconet, and 2 organs will not beat 2 falconets, but 3 organs will consistently with good micro beat 2 falconets. And so, how many civs in the game are Fast Fortress Falconet civs, right?
Yeah.
This card beats them, and it cannot be explained like how much this has upended some of the older matchups and playstyles for Portugal. It just 3 organs is like the most important card you will send in Age 3 in most matchups.
Okay, interesting. Now, is there any other unit shipments that we want to include in this, or any other?
Oh yeah. So we're gonna start with 8 halberdiers.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because what a cannons hate. Being killed by, different types of cavalry, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do halbs do? They kill hand cav really well, and they're also pretty tanky, and they can beat some other musketeer types in melee. Not super well, but enough that organs plus halbs. The other part too is they have a lot of siege. Again with Portugal, I've talked about how you don't want to be contained, right? Let's say you're doing a 10-10, and you place your town centers kind of defensively, and then you need to go on the offense, and your opponent puts a fort. That's how they used to deal with Portugal. Is your opponent would just throw a freaking fort in your face, and you're done. Because Caçador and Goon don't have a lot of siege. Neither does the organ gun. But now with the combination of halbs plus organ, if your opponent is like Italy or Inca, I've seen Dutch do it too, and they're just trying to like put a bunch of buildings in your face, you rip them down with the combination of organ halb at like 7 minutes 30, and they're gone. They're toast. Now you can boom in peace. Now you're in the driver's seat. So absolutely do not leave home without this. The next card will be 5 goons. Portuguese goons with that goon combat in their H4 card are amazing. I don't know what else to say. If you use goons and you understand how to use goons, Portugal gets the best goons. So
Okay. Yeah, 20%.
yeah, but they start off vanilla. They're not like musket riders or try to think of another inherently strong goon. Mexico's weird stuff or the Carabine Cavalry of USA. Like you do have to card them, but they're just amazing. Next card will be 8 Caçador. Caçador they're good in Age 3. They are a trade-off. There's a lot of arguments on like what is the status of Cass. Some people say trash. Some people say S tier. What the Caçador is a well-designed skirm. And it's a well-designed, unique unit that trades stats around, right? So they're faster, a little bit more base damage for less hit points, but higher armor. In Age 3, what this means is that you'll win skirm fights pretty cost-effectively because the lower HP doesn't really matter until you get into the late game versus other civs. The speed is really nice because if you pair them with Goon, you're very mobile and you're able to move around the map if you have the ability to. They die so hard to cannons because their armor does not block cannon shots. So don't get cocky. People are always like, oh, they're so S tier, and then you run into like a Gatling gun and it removes your entire mass in seconds. But you need to have it, especially because again, if you've been in the back kind of turtling, right, you want fast units to be able to push out and get back map control, right? Get back onto hunts, get back onto natural resources. So having this shipment can really help. It can also help versus an H2 timing if someone's hitting you with a bunch of pikes or musketeers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can ship these guys out because they're fast. They can kite most units fairly effectively, where you just sit at max range, whittle them down. So
Right.
again, use your town centers. 8 skirms in and of itself isn't like a game ender, but the combination of town centers plus hopefully organ guns plus a wide roster plus these guys can usually kill most H2 timings against you.
Okay. I don't think there's any other
And
cards we can add.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, we're gonna add one more.
Okay.
So from here, it can be kind of flexible what you want, but one of the most popular ones is the 7 armored pistoliers at the moment. This gives you a big tanky boy who can kind of, caps are kind of fragile, goons are kind of fragile, organ guns are fragile, right?
Mm-hmm.
This used to be a card called Mamluks, but, um, I'll joke somewhat and say that Talanis is punishing me for my anti-auto speak by removing them from the Portuguese deck. In reality, it gives you a shield and something to tank damage. It gives you like a very good HP block. Plus, they have AoE damage. They're like really solid musks. They have great melee armor. It's a very popular unit to include, but you can swap this out for a fort. If you want to do like H4 play, you can swap it out for 9 musketeers. You can swap it out for refrigeration. You can swap it out for the other mercs. But I would say as a new player, I would stick with armored pistoliers for now and get in the habit of adding them into like your push in H3. Like now you've defended, okay, chip 1,000 coin, get the mercenaries, keep massing, and now push with these guys as like the anchor or the anvil for your battle line.
Okay. Well, and that gives us a lot of options in H4 then. 6 cards to pick.
Yep. Right off the bat, 2 factories.
Right.
Right. Every European civ should at a minimum have these in their deck. They just cannot be overstated. The Order of Aviz is what it's called now.
And that one is going to be this one, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Increase range and line of sight.
Portuguese. Yeah. Again, 4 range is so good on a fast unit. With 18 range, you don't outrange skirms, but you outrange every other infantry in the game, which allows you to just torment musk civs. You can even dive in versus like bow civs sometimes. Pick a few off, run away. You can shoot at cannons, more effectively. So if cannons are being bubble wrapped by pikes or musks, you can just torment them. You're better at raiding villagers. You're better against other goons, which is very important, right? And remember, Portugal gets Royal Guard goon in H4. So you have the 20% card in H3, you have this card for +4 range, and then you get an additional 10% stats. If you play team games, you have probably played against the Portugal Goon bot, because that's all you have to do in teams. 1v1's a little bit more tricky, but I cannot stress this card enough. If you get to H4 and you get all of the Goon upgrades, you are just gonna make your life, or your opponent's life, a living hell. It cannot be overstated. I will even go for this over 2 factories sometimes. Because
Oh, wow.
if I have macroed perfectly, I will just instantly click Royal Guard, Legionaro Dragoon. I have like 30 or 40 of these, and there's very few civs, if they're stuck in H3, that can do anything against this. Like, you're just going to wipe them out.
Gotcha. Okay. So you got a few more to pick?
All right, so the next one's going to be the Gunpowder Combat.
Okay, so that's going to be this guy over here.
Mm-hmm. Again, Musketeer are a Royal Guard option for Portugal. There's one, if you ever listen to this, Crabgot, we love you. Longtime Portugal advocate. We call it the Crab Comp because he's famous for going Goon and Musk.
Interesting.
Which is not a perfectly counter system unit, but what he's doing is he's taking how strong these units can scale and
Right.
pairing them together and just beating certain civs with raw DPS and HP.
Okay.
So,
Interesting. All right.
yeah. So with the 2 cards that are left, there's a lot of flexibility here. I would probably go 2 heavy cannons, right? Another kind of staple of European civs. And this last one, I would say as a new player, I would go 5 Organ. Now organs do have K-shot, which can be pretty good, but in a 1v1, it's all about power spikes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to scale. You already have this amazing cannon. It's still gonna die to culverins. It's still gonna just demolish infantry without this card. So it's more better in teams where the level of scaling is even more important for compositions. Um, Another good card to consider is the range finding card, just next to the mortar card, next to the heavy cannon. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Um, this is really good against Malta, Italy, Inca. It allows you to sit very comfortably in your base and basically say like, no, you come to me. I'm not going to suicide my entire army versus like your wall of forts and towers and culverins and Karaka. Like, no, I'm not playing that game. Another card that I really enjoy, which shout out to Mr. Crispy Butt, PhD, for inspiring me to start looking at this, is the Elmedi card.
Where are they? Down here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Portugal Hussar are solid, but nothing to write home about. These are super tanky Lancers. So just really strong mercs, and it allows you to push your opponent around. They can snare, they can tank a lot of damage. Just an all-around great unit to add to your composition. So, again, Portugal, you can kind of play with a lot of different cards depending on what you're trying to do. But I think the deck that I have, if you take this on the ladder, you do an FF, you should be okay. But keep these things in mind. Even the Portuguese Expeditionary Force, which I've taken because I'm an old grognard from the old days,
Mm-hmm.
next to the Order of Aviz. 6 Cassadors, 6 Goons, right? These are both great units. The value of it's more than any other individual unit shipment. So, again, leaning into that flexibility of the Civ, it's really great.
Okay. Gotcha. Let's go ahead and quickly go over now. Water is not an extensive, part of a game. Usually, like, it depends on the map. It's super map dependent. There's many land maps in the pool, not as many water. It's not like the old days, right, where you could be on like, Caribbean where you're island hopping. But water's still important. Water booming is still important, and pushing your opponent off water can still be important. So if you take this deck and have to modify it slightly for water, what would you take away and then add?
Well, we're gonna have to modify it a good deal. So let's just go over to the pre-made naval deck and start playing with that.
Mm-hmm.
So from this one, let's delete. This is going to be for naval situations. Let's delete advanced dock. Although some old school players still use it. Let's delete coastal defenses. You have town centers, you don't need it. Let's delete navigation school. Let's delete the 2 pirate ships. Let's delete Passage to Nippon, which is a fun H3 Merc shipment, but definitely the advanced. Let's delete 3 Caravel. And let's delete 1000 wood in H4. I don't know why you would take that in a 1v1 deck, but, it's pre-made. Okay, so from here, let's go to H2. Let's add in 2 Caravel. And let's add in 8 crossbow.
Are you wanting to keep the
Crates of food. No, we can get rid of that. And then let's add in advanced arsenal and gunpowder attack, and that should be plenty. And then H3, we're gonna add 1000 wood. We're gonna add constable. We're going to add gunpowder HP. And we're going to add, where is it? We've got good combat, a unit shipment, probably probably have plenty of food. A good one could be the 8 halberdiers or 5 goons. We'll say 5 goons. We'll just stick with the theme. And then in age 4, we're going to replace the... Okay, so this one, again, if you're watching this, you can pause it. Think about which one you want. I'm going to replace Portuguese Expeditionary Force with Goon Combat. Yeah, that one. Sorry, Order of Advies. And I'm going to replace Range Finding with Gunpowder Attack. For the record, and then one more change. I think I'm going to trade out the Fort in age 3 for a Frigate. Okay. That's a pretty good standard deck. You have the 2 Caravels in age 2 to defend. You've got a pretty good water card. You've got Schooners, right? That'll be your first card in a water boom. Is you build Schooners, even if you don't get any value over it, and then you'll transition. On our Discord, I actually have an updated version of the Samurai Revolution video of how to do a water boom with Portugal. I used it in our 1v1 tournament. I thought pretty well. It's kind of the classic water boom, but this was basically my deck other than Constables, which is a new card. Yep. Basically, you burn up your wood crates, you build a bunch of boats, you build like 2 to 3 docks, you put your town center on the shore of where you want to build your docks, or forward, so your opponent, if they're trying to push you off water, you can hide all your boats next to your town center. Town centers beat any age 2 boat in the game. They even beat frigates pretty cost effectively. They have to wait until mortars are a huge mass, so you don't need a fort for water play for Portugal because your town centers are like mini forts that are always firing on your opponent's water within their sight radius. So Portugal has the safest water boom because of this, and I definitely encourage Portuguese players to look up water booms when water is safely available because it's the most absurd boom in the game. You could have 60 villager equivalent by 10 minutes pretty consistently.
Gotcha.
Where most civs to tap out at like 40 vils, Portugal's 50% more than that. It's absurd what Portugal can get away with on the water. So the only other card you might want to trade is the warship combat one. Like if you're fighting somebody that can't really fight your water, like France or Germany, you can swap that card out for a unit shipment in 3 or unit shipment in 4. It's not a must-have.
Okay, gotcha. Well, okay, so if anybody is looking to pick up Portugal, just understand that if you're afraid of water play, you're going to need to get used to water play playing Portugal. So go ahead and take a screenshot of this deck if you need to. I'll let it sit there on the screen. Got plenty of options. And then I'm going to go back to our test deck, which is our land deck. If you had not already taken a picture of that, this is a very good generic deck for you to have on land. So 2 very different. Usually, sometimes like a water deck, a lot of times is like just a couple of cards swapped out to have some potential water play. But in this case, you have it's kind of different. So, but yeah, let's. If you want, let's go ahead and jump into a little bit of a skirmish match,
Yeah.
And you can kind of explain to me what I need to be looking for and what the opening round would look like for a new Portuguese player. And as you guys can see, I'm a level 7, so I have touched Portugal, probably as many fingers that I have on my hands. So we're going to be playing on easy just because we don't want... The focus is the build order here. So we'll go standard maps, see what we get. But we'll focus on the land start. So
Yeah, I think that we're going to do a 10-10, which is the easiest one. And at lower elos, the speed of it can really mess with people that are trying to play passive. Although this is a great water map. We're going to pretend it's land. All right, so pause.
okay.
Okay, so first thing you gotta do is Portugal. This is the critical part. So we're gonna do a 10-10. What that means is we're not gonna invest in any infrastructure, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're just gonna try to get to age 2 as fast as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's good in Portugal comes in at age 3. So really fast, the goals for age 1 is we want to get up as fast as we can. We want to lay down a trade post, so that way we get a good shipment curve, right?
Okay.
Basically, you want to gather up your crates as fast as you can, You want to herd in these 2 herds, right? Because you're going to have no military to defend yourself. And you want to prioritize food treasures for the most part, but also wood in the mid part. So like that bear right there, because he's so close to your base, it's probably okay to ignore him this time. Although when you do the transition, you might want to come back and grab him. So do you know where the trade posts are on this map?
Go ahead and point them out to me.
So there's one in the middle,
Okay.
and then there's 2 on, there's one on the north and one on the south part, right, of the trade line.
Okay.
I guess you would say north by northwest for one, and then south by southwest for the other one.
Okay. So,
Uh,
yeah.
you know that Germany is not going to take a trade post early on, typically, right? So you'll want to beeline your explorer right to the middle, and once you're done gathering the 200 wood, immediately drop a TP, and from there, basically just gather food, put hunts in, and once you hit 800 food, age up. So I'll let you do, and try to follow that as much as you can, what I just said.
Okay. Yeah. So, beeline for a trade post. So you're opening. You want to go right for a trade post. You're gonna, and so therefore it's imperative that you gather that 200 wood, and then you need to be herding all your hunts in pretty close to the TC, and you're going up 10-10.
Correct.
Got it. We're gonna avoid treasures just for the sake of simplicity here, and not to cause any sort of off, like all of a sudden your timings are slightly off. So
That's true, because we've all seen a video where some guy's like, I got a 2-minute age up, and it's like just perfect treasures everywhere. So you also have your spyglass. So yep, queue up. You can lay your spyglass down kind of in the middle of your town where you think you're gonna be.
See.
Yep. So
Yeah.
yeah, that works. Now put down the. You've got 7 idols, so everyone needs to start herding now.
Right. In case you don't know, this is shift clicking. So you select something, and you hold down shift. I want him to move here, and then to attack that. So this way, you're lining up basically your the actions that you want your characters to take.
And put all your town center. You want to put them right on that closest hunt. Those 2.
Right. So I can select my town center, right click, and then it will pop out there.
Okay. And now your explorer, just move them around and look for food treasures.
Right.
It's going to vary game to game. Like if we were doing a different, like a market start or a more standard, I wouldn't say more standard, but a more slower Portuguese start, you would, prioritize different treasures. But it's more like advanced Portuguese stuff, but just keep in mind. So what about this bear down here? Okay, XP, not worth it. Yeah, I already take that, yep.
You want to check back, make sure you're herding these back, I'm guessing. Every 8 seconds you can hit the herd.
Yeah, and what's also nice about the 10-10 is it's less to think about.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the game, you can focus on your explorer more. You're not having to swap around macro. All right, cards in, pick the land deck test, send Victoria, and use your spyglass again. Use it up north. See if you can guess where the north trade post is.
Overshot it.
Almost. But did you notice too, like how it discovered that treasure and gave you a little bit more line of sight?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. That is a little kind of trick. It's why most Portugal players will focus on. Wow, you're almost up, by the way.
Okay.
So, yep, around 230-ish is when you should be going up, and you're going to age up with 500 food.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
All right, now you need to kind of pause. Okay, so we're going to keep things simple, right? But now you got to shift again. Remember, Portugal is a lot of quick decisions, simple but quick decisions made successfully in succession.
Okay.
So what we want to do is, all right, we're up against Germany. Normally Germany's just going to raid you. Germany might tower rush you, but for now, we're just going to assume Germany is going to do a semi-FF classic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to chop 100 wood so you can make villagers. And then after that, you want about 3 to 4 on coin. Everyone else back to food.
Okay, got it.
So for now, I would put everyone but 2 on wood. or everyone but herding villagers on wood. I would try to get 100, you know, whatever treasures, whatever combination. Once you hit 100 wood, one guy builds a house, everyone else goes back to split 3 to 4 on coin, and everyone else on food.
Now, what he means by, oh man, I didn't really mean to do that. But what he means by herding villagers is obviously, you know, you want ones that are going to be used for, you know, herding these in.
And keep your explorer wandering around. Boom, 100 wood, make a house. And now you need about 4 on coin.
We don't want to necessarily take this coin mine, but
Good stuff, good stuff. Now, is there any good treasures you can creep? Because we haven't creeped any of them. I guess we're not trying to mess with stuff. But yeah, you should be going around creeping treasures.
right, that
Spyglass. Now, spyglass your opponent's area. Germany would normally be aging up right around now.
Oh, hold on. There he is.
Okay. Kind of have an idea.
So,
Not too bad.
okay, interesting. So, obviously that would be a lot faster. Like, usually you wouldn't even have to worry about grabbing, you know, chopping for that so much faster if you have the wood. Okay.
Correct.
So,
All right, pause. Okay. So now here comes the most important thing, right? Is where your town center is going to go. So I'm going to let you decide, but I'm going to give you like 3 options, right?
mm-hmm.
Step 1, putting it forward, kind of in that choke point, right? Basically saying, I don't think Germany can build enough infantry. Now, if they're pike rushing, they can. But if they're just semi-FF, they really can't stop you. If you put a town center there and then set your rally points so the next town center comes out there, it forces Germany to have to go around to attack or raid you. The other option is a more defensive one, right? And there's kind of 2 spots I see right off the top. There's like up near that coin mine, kind of on the shore if you're water booming,
Mm-hmm.
or even kind of south-ish of your position, where there's that hunt and then there's that far coin mine you're gathering from. Not that far, just like right
here.
underneath that bear treasure even.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, interesting. So let's go ahead and, you know, let's go ahead and demonstrate some map control here. So I see, you know, I see hunts here and a coin mine here. I see hunts here and a coin mine here. I'm feeling, or hunts here and a coin mine here. So I'm thinking maybe I want to gain, this trade post is already giving me line of sight, so maybe I want to go up here.
I would go even closer, like right, kind of like to the right, like to the bottom right corner of that rock right above your trade. So go right above your trade post. Like I'm talking really close, so you can cover the TC fire. Like right on the other side of the road there.
Okay, so right here.
That's a good spot. No, even more left. I'm more aggressive.
Okay, gotcha.
See your trading post? I mean like right above your trade post.
And would you want to use your explorer to really kind of defend that?
Yeah, just to make sure he doesn't get snared. Yep, Q of ill, put some on food, and ship your 700 coin. Yeah, there we go. Bingo. So now you get the hunt. Now you get line of sight.
Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and macro for, and this is easy now because of the 500. Do I keep queuing here or?
You're going to, okay, yep. Keep queuing, keep herding. Yep, there. And once you hit 300 coin, you'll have them stop and go back to food, or have them go to the town center. Make a bill. Okay, and now pull your miners off and have them go hunt or gather crates or something. And for the record, I know it's your first time, but you can actually, with some good treasures and some good click micro, you can be aging up to 3 right after this bill. So now you have 1,000 coin, everyone's on food.
Okay.
So.
The next card, or
Yeah.
do we hold off?
Oh, yep. Hold the next 700 wood. And then age up with the fast age up. As soon as you can. Exile Prince. Yep. Exile Prince.
Okay.
Forward TC, build a bill on the forward TC.
I will in a second. There it is.
Okay. So you've got everybody on hunts. You're going to want to add about 3 to 4 on coin now.
Okay.
Yeah, normally, no, that's too far. Go on the coin mine to the north. Yeah.
Ooh, that pull trick was rough.
Queue a Ville in your other town center. Yeah, get those hunts.
Okay, now the
And
700.
gather up your wood.
Okay, so now you're in age 3.
Yep. So pause. Okay. So we were about 15 seconds slower, but this is still a great time. When you imagine that most rushes hit their power now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2. We don't have a shipment up, so there's a couple ways we can think, right? By the way, you could have sent the town center to your forward one if you were under pressure, like the shipment point for the eco.
Oh,
Have
okay,
it
right.
pop out of forward one.
Mm-hmm.
For now, though, it's fine. You know, again, play around with it. From here, I would probably be pretty aggressive with my town center placement for the third one. I'd probably go north to where that you kind of wanted to in the first place.
Right there.
Up there.
Okay.
But I'm comfortable defending. I would say if you're a new player, you would put this one down south a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. So that way you cover that back coin mine and you get the access to that hunt down there.
Okay.
And then with your 700 wood, you want to build a racks in the forward spot, right? So you can defend your forward TC.
Okay.
You want to build a racks, a stable, and a few houses.
Okay.
And you want to keep
Keep the
probably want
queue.
some more on coin. Yeah, keep queuing. You want to hit 300 coin by now. Like, you know, to be fair too, if you had kind of a bad start like this, I might have even saved the 700 wood for 3 organs, but that's kind of ballsy. So just keep that. Once you hit 300 coin, if you want to go up, you've got idols. You need them queue in town centers.
Yeah. So
this
this is where it gets weird, right?
Well, this is where the APM starts to really matter. So, okay, once you hit 300, send 3 organ guns and make sure that it's forward.
You got it.
Okay, and from your forward racks, make some musk, because that's what you're macroed for.
It won't let me.
Yep, no, you're already there.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
So, town centers, make vills. Yeah, this is where it gets sweaty.
Right.
You've got a good macro. All right, and your forward racks is to making musk. Yep. You've got good. You've got good macro at the moment.
Okay.
Yep. Build a market. You've got 6 idols. You got a lot of walk-in time. It's your first time, like at this level though, so it's okay.
Yeah, I'm taking this hunt now.
Queue up another bill somewhere. And get hunting dogs.
Okay.
Alright, now you've got your 3 organs, you've got some musk. Poke. Poke with the organ guns.
Okay, so
you can do halberdiers, you can do Castador, by the way, just depending on what your opponent's making at
Right.
this point. You'd spyglass if you weren't sure.
I gotcha.
Yep, keep making bills.
So it's difficult. Like if you can see, you know, it's difficult to say like the food cost is pretty intense.
Yep, you need to make more bills. But you need to ship 8 halbs to defend your organs.
Whoops. Okay. All right, so we're saying we're poking and prodding here.
Yeah. Keep making bills. You've only got 2 town centers producing. Yeah, this is where hotkeys and focus. Did you have hunting dogs at your market yet?
I did. Yep. We can go steel traps.
Steel traps. Yep. We need food. Go like that. Get a few more on wood, by the way, and queue up. Yep, queue up a musk. More on wood.
Okay.
Make a Ville.
Yeah.
I sound like I'm manic, but like that's kind of how you have to be with the Civ.
Right. Right.
Like this is your make or break like moment. Um, good. Okay, I don't know where the 8 halbs went. Oh, you have them on
Oh,
the
so it
PC.
didn't. Yeah. I was wondering why I couldn't set it.
All right, build a house. Just wherever. I would even put more vills on it, but that's me. Because you want to have that house. You don't want to be idling. Every moment you're idling, you're losing your Civ bonus.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Town centers.
Okay. So now the economy's taking off. You got. So at what point do we want to? I guess we want to try to get our.
Yeah. If we had a good timing thing, all right, we aged up at 6:45. By the time the second shipment comes in, it should be around 8:30. So we're a few minutes behind, but that's okay. But this would be the time to push and start messing with your opponent. From here, you can ship, let's say, 5 casts. You're building a lot of musk. Yep. Now you're gonna have to build another house, and all your TCs are idle.
We see, yeah, and then see that, and then you have the pop space. So it's something that you always have to be constantly thinking about. And so that's probably why the 1K wood is probably even a pretty solid shipment, just to kind of ease the burden of.
If your opponent has a bunch of artillery, you can use the 1,000 wood to build a foundry, a few houses, and then pump organs out. A good rule of thumb with Portugal, which you kind of have right now, is the 2-1-1 ratio, right? You should have 2 on food for every other 1 of another resource. So get ready to queue all vills, build a house, keep massing units. And this is why I think Portugal is so unpopular. It's like, if you're playing Ottoman, you can just kind of focus on the fight and have a good time.
Right.
But like Portugal, like you're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Got to build another house.
Yeah.
Got to build another.
and another. Keep it queued.
And another. Keep your stuff queued. Keep stuff. Hotkeys are your friends. You're playing Portugal, but at this point the AI is toast, and we've hit 12 minutes. So think of it this way: we're in age 3. We've got a pretty big mass. We're at 38 vills. If we had perfect macro, we'd probably be about 40-ish. So this would be the equivalent of any other Civ's boom, right?
Right.
Except you've got map control. You've got stuff all over the place. You've got a full roster of varied units. You've got these organ guns. You've got halbs. You've got good shipments. And from here, if you were feeling good, you could just ship 1,000 coin and age up. To 4, you could send unit cards, keep making vills.
Yeah, you want to keep looking at that. You want to keep looking at your resource count for sure.
Yeah, scanning the mini-map too, because you've got all these vills everywhere, right?
Right.
So it's easy to lose track of them.
And AI is just sitting, but I think that gives a good, clear indication. I'm just going to wait for them to surrender, but I think that gives you a good idea of exactly what that opening move is. You need to be thinking about your TC placement. Yeah, there you go. So thinking about TC placement for sure. Obviously in this case aggressive, but you see that we are controlling essentially with these bases. Like you can kind of build little bases in every case, and then your villagers are safe because then they can just move into the TC. So you can control multiple mines. You're getting right in your opponent's face. It's really good, but I see what you mean. The vulnerability, the APM required, as well as the fact that if you add a water boom onto this, this is a little bit easier just because you have water only on one side, but adding water play to that, in addition to, okay, we'll make a house, keep the TCs going. If you're not keeping the TCs going, you're losing, and then on top of that, your musks are 75 food, right? That's almost a vill cost. So it's a lot.
Correct. Castador are also food weighted. Halberdiers are pretty expensive. Goon and Huss are also very expensive in food. So everything costs food, but then you have these huge population constraints, right? So you're having to make sure that you've got a lot of macro. I think again, CrabGot had a really good saying that Portugal teaches you to play the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's no hacks. It doesn't have auto-producing TCs or beefy villagers or a very basic mechanic or house eco like Sweden and Inca, like you actually have to input everything all of the time. And it can be really frustrating because you can kind of fall apart. It's happened to me dozens of times. It'll continue to happen to me. Even someone that's played it a long time, like as a normal person, not like a pro, the APM will start to fall apart. And that's why I suggested the 1010, because a 13 or 14 vill age up requires even more, like moving villagers around and making sure your herds are good. At least a 1010, you have speed on your side. So as we can see, if we go to the timeline, let's take a look at those age ups really fast. So, yep. And then what was H3? Yeah, that's a full 45 seconds faster than the average Civ,
Right.
the FFs. And by then you can have your, or if you macro perfectly, I guess I should have told you, like it's usually 5 to 6 on to get the 300 for organs in time.
Okay.
6 vills on that, and then the rest on hunts. You get the 700, 2 vills that use it to build houses and military buildings. Um, you can have that plus a shipment of either musk or halbs, depending on how you built your deck, pushing out by 8:30. So most civs are still in H2 or they just hit H3, and you can strike at them and destabilize them or defend your forward position very cost effectively, right? With these very solid H3 units. And then from there, it's up to you as the Portuguese player to like continue macroing the resources efficiently to make sure that you're booming while defending or poking. Don't overcommit. Don't get too cocky. 3 organs is an amazing shipment, but if you're fighting Russia or a native civ, like wipe the blockhouses or the war huts out. Maybe some houses, but don't like sit under their town center waiting to get like wiped, because you have 3 town centers, they have 1. You've got map control. They're on the defensive. Don't overcommit and take your time. And Portugal players like a gourmand, right? Like they like to take their time and play with their food and raid them around and just kind of hit that win condition, because if they've made it this far and they've put their opponent on the back foot, with some notable exceptions of civs, they're pretty solid. In fact, close it out. Should I talk about some quick matchups really fast? I know it's going over a bit of your time, but
Let's
it might be useful.
we can talk about that. I want to quickly go over the build order as you described it. So in a 1010 FF, right? So that's a fast fortress. You're not making vills. You're just going to make the original 3 that you're going to make. Is the intention is to you're going to gather up for 800 food. So your explorer is going to immediately build a trade post with the starting 200 wood. Your vills are all going to be gathering food, and you're going to prioritize food treasures. First card is going to be Fatorius coming in. And then once you hit H2, you're aging up with Philosopher Prince, which is giving you 500 food. So you really only need 700 food for the macro in terms of getting to Fortress, and then you're going to put 4 vills on coin to get to that 300 coin, because your next shipment is going to be 700 coin. And so in that time as well, you're also going to be putting some vills on wood, 3 to 4 that are going to go ahead and just chop for 100. Hopefully a treasure will get you there, but 100 wood to get a house. And then that way you can queue up some more settlers in the meantime. Once that 700 coin comes in, you need to be macroing for that 1200 food, and then your settlers are off coin. And once they gather that 300, okay, so 1200, 1000, right? Go to age up, and then you're going to go fast age up option. And then 700 wood to help you with the infrastructure going into it. You're going to be having 5 or 6 on coin at that point, so that's about half your eco right there, maybe a little bit less, to get to your organ guns, which you're going to send first. When 700 wood comes in, you're going to be building your military infrastructure, stable, barracks, get your houses in, and that way you can start producing units. And you're going to keep a good 2-to-1 ratio for food, just because you need to keep producing settlers out of your TCs. So that's I think that's the general opening. From there, you have your unit shipments depending on what your opponent is making. Town militia for defense, 1,000 wood if you need help with kind of just keeping your vills on food and coin primarily, and then you have the 1,000 wood that can help you a great deal, and then you go from there.
Yeah. With the quick caveat of don't just bot the 3 organs if your opponent's got Hus. Send the halberdiers first, build up some anti-cav, and cast doors, and then send the 3 organs. I've seen a lot of Portuguese players just ship 3 organs in the blind, and it's just like, oh, well, here are my Kanya.
Okay,
There
well,
goes your organs.
yeah. So you're talking a little bit about matchups. So in terms of that, right? You know, like in those rush civs, right? Let's focus primarily on a civ that's not going to give you the kind of time that you need that we had in this game, right? So let's talk about Howd or Lakota or something like that, right? What do you do?
Okay. So those are kind of two sides of the rushing coin, actually, and I actually love the difference between the two. So Hod is scary. Hod is a miserable matchup for ports because they can just get such powerful units out so fast that your defense doesn't matter, right? Like 3 organs is your win condition. You'll never beat Hod in H2. I don't want to say never. That's hyperbole. Age of Empires 3 players, we tend to be a little bit, you know, hyperbole. But let's say versus a smart Haudenosaunee player in H2, his units are so much better than yours. The longer you stay in H2, the more you're going to be punished. They do have low siege, so if you FF and ship like 9 Musk verse, or even 9 cat or 8 Cass into organs, that can really slow them down. Beware the Kanya, beware forest prowlers. Like don't try like get people think Castador S tier, like fight forest prowlers, and you'll understand what like an S tier skirm really is about. Um, but Hod has low siege, even with Town Destroyer. Like people say, oh, Town Destroyer is so good, like just pop Minutemen, kill them. Um, and that is true. When you're good Haudenosaunee, it's worth it to keep 150 coin in the bank, right? Like
Yeah, just in
maybe
case.
mine, yeah, so you can pop Minutemen. And don't be afraid to cancel a shipment to ship Town Militia too, if you're under so much pressure that you kind of need it immediately. Uh, Hod typically will have this very strong mass in H3 or H2, but their economy can't sustain it. So the whole goal is fighting under your town centers and moving behind it. So try to take good fights, use some walls, use organ guns, um, and just try to run the clock. As long as you have 3 town centers to their 1, eventually you will win, but their units are really strong, so you have to be very cagey. You kind of have to move back and forth. You might have to sacrifice a town center against Portugal. Or against Haudenosaunee. That's okay. You still have 2 to their 1, right? But definitely FF. Don't try to play it out in H2. Don't like fur trade or not fur trade, spice trade semi. Go to H3, get the Halbs or Musk or Cass out, and then send the 3 organs and just camp your town center.
Okay.
Um, Against Lakota, this is ironically your best matchup.
Oh, okay.
Lakota is sad against Portugal. FF, Lakota has really terrible siege. If they club rush you, just ship 8 crossbows and time it with Minutemen and just sit in your town center. Focus on the clubs mainly. Um, their hand cav has no siege and they take a lot of damage from your town center, so you kind of want to turtle versus Lakota initially, so that they're taking fire from 2 town centers. Make sure to herd. Once you beat their rush, you can usually just back off, go to H3, and then just spam goons in Castador at Lakota, and there's really nothing they can do about it. Lakota does not have. Their Wakina are terrible,
Yeah.
and their bow riders are good, but they don't have the armor that goons do against ranged attacks. So your Portuguese goons will kill them. Plus, Lakota doesn't have the best eco on 1 town center, so it's an amazing matchup. Um, Another bad matchup for Portugal is Germany. Um, Germany has a lot more easy time macroing. They tend to spike early. Germany is tricky too because they can pike rush you, which typically Portugal can win, but they can semi FF safely. And so what they'll do is they'll try to snipe some of your villagers, right, with Ulons. Go to H3 and then just have this huge mass of Ulons, War Wagon, and Skirm. And your Castador have less HP, so if Ulons connect with your Castador, it's just game over. Or your organs, right? So you kind of have to like 10-10, take the aggressive position, and then figure out how to push them around. It's just a very difficult matchup because the advantage Germany has early on economically, plus their bigger unit shipments, can ensure that Germany just is ahead of you the entire game. And it's really strong. I would say you want to go 8 halbs and then organs off of 10-10 is very effective because the halbs will at least demolish any cavalry they come in contact with, and then your organs can demolish the skirms, and then you're going to need to mix Cassador in before they get a war wagon mass. And you're going to have to survive up until, um, yeah, it's really tough. Other good matchups for Portugal. Portugal was bad into Malta. Now they're a bit better. Portugal can be good into Dutch. They can be good into Brits, although Brits will dominate you early on. Basically, there's no, other than Lakota, there's probably no quote-unquote easy Civ matchups for Portugal, but because your units are so varied, you don't really have a matchup that's unwinnable either. You're just going to have to constantly, like, know the matchups, think about things, and then move along accordingly, right? But get to age 3, get your economy rolling, and especially at the lower elos, if you can just practice the APM, and I don't mean APM like you have to be fast, just consistently making sure that you're attending to making villagers, making units, that your villager working, right, is working on food, wood, and coin in a good ratio. You'll find that this civ is one of the most fun civs in the world because you can do any unit combination, you know, any sort of late H4 composition, go for it. You can even use mortars now to bombard people from 33 range away. They have a lot of cool mercs. If you like doing church techs and you feel a little bit comfortable, even though bestieros are a meme, going Black Riders in certain team game situations is hilarious with Portugal.
Yeah.
The Portuguese, but there's just so much potential with the Civ, but you have to get there. So, trying to get any other bad matchups. Italy can be tough, but Italy likes to sit around and just do forts in this current meta and walls and stuff, which Portugal is uniquely suited for long range engagements. So
right, they'll benefit in that. Okay.
And I would just leave with the last part when you play Portugal, and don't be frustrated. Don't feel bad. Okay, I've talked about how great the goons are. They're super strong. I've talked about Cass are strong. On top of a lot of economy APM, those units do require a lot of babysitting to move around. So if you're a newer player and you're just getting frustrated and you think you're like just shit at this game because you can't, it's a lot of APM. And it takes a lot of practice. Portugal's definitely like the Civ design itself. It takes a long time for the Portuguese skill set to start paying off elo dividends because you're just having to work so hard. Your units are squishy. They need to be moving around, kiting, not taking fights. It's why I think the organ and halberdier is a really great place to start for new players because it's like the most APM friendly composition because you just kind of drag box, bubble wrap your organs with halbs and just let them do their thing. And don't be afraid to go Musk-Huss. Don't be afraid to mix in these different unit compositions as you feel comfortable with. There's not a wrong way to play Portugal other than like using the logistician age up. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You're gonna close, but...
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you're looking for a civ that's super flexible, is one of those that doesn't really have a hard and fast rule to it. It just kind of feels out of game and then adapts accordingly. If you're looking for something to really sink your teeth into, get better at the game mechanically, go after something with a high skill ceiling, as opposed to something that is, probably a little bit easier to master. This may be the civ for you. Something that's more economically focused and does well into civs that give you a little bit of time. So, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of our Civilization Spotlight series that we're doing here at the Age of Bison YouTube channel. We really appreciate it, guys. And if you like what we're doing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, leave a like, give us your thoughts, tell us your comments. We want to improve on what we're doing here. And if this was beneficial to you, we want to know. And if it wasn't, also let us know. Thank you so much, guys. And we will see you in the next one.